What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 54. I'm your host, Marcus, and in this episode, we are talking about how to break your behavior. Now, in this podcast, what I wanted to actually aim for is give you specifics on what to be looking for to break habits. We all know that there are certain habits that you have that you know are bad, but what exactly is causing you to stay with that habit? Now we all know pizza is bad for you. We know eating something like broccoli is better for you. But how can we change that? How can we go about it and reframe it to where we can break the bad habits that we have? And it goes far back even to when we were kids. And and a lot of things I've talked about is how we've been programmed as a kid to into our adult years, and how it is hard to break those habits, because a lot of times the different behaviors that we develop is all based off of a reward system. And understand that when you're a young kid, eating that piece of cake is so good, and realizing that, or having that pizza is so good, and realizing that uh, in doing so, that you get immediate gratification. You feel good. It tastes good. Ultimately, in the long term, it is not good for you, and you realize that you start packing on the weight. And so, breaking these behaviors in anything that it is, it's always the same framework you can break it down to, and realize that these habits again are essentially reward system is essentially gutting out the reward system and implementing new reward systems for those things that you want in life. And these is a lot of different things that I've done in my life to help essentially break behaviors that I don't like about myself anymore. Uh, for much of me, it's always been a battle when it comes to weight. In my younger years, I was very overweight, and then I lost weight. And through my adult years, I've been pretty good about maintaining my weight for the most part. But understand that in doing so, that it requires reframing in a lot of different things. And again, this applies for any habit or behavior that you have. If that's smoking, or if you are trying to start to learn better, you're trying not to be a couch potato anymore, right? You have that one habit or a bad behavior when you come home, and all you do is just plunk on the couch and you start watching TV. And understand that reward when you get home is to turn it off and just entertain yourself. That's the reward that you're building for yourself. And understand that your brain essentially maps out your behaviors because of this, based on the reward. So coming home and sitting and relaxing and watching TV, right? That reward outweighs going to the gym and getting sweaty and working really hard. And so you can see what the difference is there in the reward system. So when you start looking at trying to change behaviors and reward systems, it comes down to an awareness. Now, we all, again, know the very top down view of what's good and what's bad. Pizza's bad, broccoli is good, sitting on the couch is bad, going to the gym is good. We all know these different things. So, to fix that, to correct that, and start developing a habit that will help you start achieving the things that you want, you have to really focus on your reward system. And you have to really break it down. You have to really magnify it. When I talk about being aware, this is why awareness is so strong in anything that you're doing. To make change in your life, you have to be aware of the things that you truly want, of the things that you're truly doing. You have to first look at what the triggers are. And when you come home and your first trigger is to throw all your stuff on the counter, maybe it's to grab a snack and then go sit on the couch. That is your trigger, right? It's coming home and grabbing the snack, because your body goes into that autopilot and knows what the next step is. You got your reward, right? You're eating, and then you are watching TV, right? So you're entertaining. So you are essentially hitting that dopamine, right? That hitting that and realizing that that's the reward system that you're playing out, because that is so much easier than turning around, throwing on your gym clothes, and going straight to the gym, and realize that that's a lot more work, a lot more effort, and realize that your brain will go for the easier thing. But when you're building a new habit, a new behavior, you realize that it changes, and then your reward system starts pinpointing what is more beneficial, right? Because a lot of times immediate gratification is something we always go for. Our body is designed to always go for the easiest thing, right? It's to keep us safe, easy, and to keep us from essentially doing anything that we wouldn't want to do, right? So being said, when you are looking at this, you have to adjust the triggers. You have to first look at the triggers. What is triggering you? What bad behavior? If we take the example of the couch and realize that going home and throwing your keys down and grabbing a snack, right? That is the trigger. Instead of grabbing a snack, you need to start looking at, well, okay, I'll have my clothes out for the gym the night before, possibly in the morning if I have time. And then when I get home, I just go home and that my trigger is to put on my clothes, because then it starts, you start going in that autopilot. Okay, now I have my clothes on. I'm one step closer. And then you got to get back in the car. You got to drive to the gym, and maybe even have the gym at home, which is a lot more convenient and helps out. Start working out. So realizing that what we need to do is develop that trigger and realize what is triggering us, and be aware of that trigger, and not allow that trigger to essentially go off. And so when you develop this awareness and start really paying attention, you first aim at the trigger. What is causing me to fall into this behavior? And then you look, well, okay, if there's something else, maybe I want to go to the gym. What is going to cause me to allow me to go to the gym? So I need to find that trigger and replace that trigger, and be aware of the triggers, because that's what's going to essentially start propelling you into that behavior that you want to go into. And that being said, it's going to go, once you have the trigger, then you got to start really looking at the reward system. What am I actually getting rewarded here? Because a lot of times it is so easy to go for the simple thing, the immediate gratification, and delaying that, and understanding, okay, my awareness says, right, that I want that snack. But that is essentially my reward, is the snack, and entertaining myself. Where if I could start focusing on the reward of being healthier in the way I feel, because maybe I wake up in the morning and I feel like garbage, like I drank all night and I just feel like garbage, but I haven't drank all night and I really don't understand. This is something, when I've gotten older, I've really noticed in my body, depending on what I ate, essentially it determines your mood. You are what you eat. And this is, again, not just for dieting or exercise or anything like that. This falls for any behavior that you're trying to change. But when you start looking at your diet and stuff like that, you really have to start focusing on the reward, on the getting healthy, the way you feel, right? Because for me, it just stunk waking up and feeling like garbage. Like I spent all night drinking and I was up all night partying, and then only to realize that maybe I just overate. And so that was a big trigger for me. That was a big reward for me on the way I felt, that I would feel much better in the morning. I could wake up, I wouldn't have aches and pains, and I'd be able to go out my day and I would feel really good. And if I wanted to go for a run or anything like that, I wouldn't feel like I was just bogged down and couldn't do it. Like, I have kids, like I want to be able to run with my kids and enjoy the time with my kids, but I can't do that if that part isn't developed. Right? If I'm not aware of that reward. And then you have to understand, once you start looking at the reward system a lot more deeply than just surface level, and then you start focusing on that. Because a lot of times when you are trying to change a bad habit, you're saying, okay, just stop eating the snack, just stop going on the couch. Instead, you got to look for that trigger. And then when you start looking at that trigger, find out what triggers you don't do it. You're aware of what's going on. Okay, well, I know if I grab that snack, I know what the next step is going to be. Where instead I can put my clothes on and I can go to the gym and I can start working out. And even though it stinks, you have to realize that this goes back into when you start talking about building a habit, right? I think it takes like 90 days to build a new habit, new behavior. You have to realize you have to program it, because once to get rid of old programming is very hard, because again, you've essentially conditioned yourself into that is the default setting. And so you have to change your default setting by being aware of specific behaviors, your targets, your triggers, and then changing those triggers and focusing on the next thing. So those first 90 days will be hard, but you have to realize that it's because you're trying to reshift your focus. Yes, I want to be healthier. I want to live a better lifestyle. Or do I want to focus on feeling like junk and just entertaining myself, having that immediate gratification? Because a lot of times, we're really stressed, so that immediate gratification is a lot something we desire more, as opposed to something that may take a while. But we realize that, once we start shifting behavior, that we can start actually enjoying the other thing a lot more. It's not saying that you just shift it and then it's all done and said. Just like any behavior, it will change if you start changing your behavior. So you become essentially put this new behavior essentially running on autopilot. So it is much simpler to do. And so you have that trigger. So every time you get home, you just automatically throw on your clothes and you go to the gym. It's just a trigger, just something you do, just like you used to go grab a snack and go sit on the couch and watch TV. So these are things you have to be aware of, and then start focusing on what is your reward? What are you ultimately getting out of this? When you start thinking about, well, I can be healthier, so I can start running with my kids. I can start waking up and not feeling like garbage. I can actually start looking good and putting on new clothes. I can start building confidence in myself. And so you start looking at these things, and yes, a lot of these things that we really want in life, you have to realize that they do take a lot more effort on our behalf. And so you have to, again, focus on what it is you want. And this is why a lot of people, they have vision boards and stuff, because of this fact. Like, you have to visualize what it is that you want. Because a lot of times when you're thinking about it, you can't, it's much more harder to picture yourself doing that, as opposed to that thing in the cabinet, that snack that you have that's like, man, it's right there and it tastes so good, and I'm going to feel like junk after the fact. But you know what? Right now, I'll sacrifice that because I get it right now. And so instead, you change that, and you realize that once you start, over the 90 days, you start building this new behavior, that it starts becoming easier, and that you're more focused on the way you start feeling, because you feel, man, I feel really good, and I can just get up and start moving, and I feel great. I can go out and run, 5 miles, and I feel great, and I'm not breathing heavy, and I can play with my kids, and I'm starting to look good. I'm actually buying smaller clothes, right? And it's all about, for me, when I talk about like physical health, and again, this goes for any bad behavior that you have, but this example is a lot more easier to discuss, because a lot of people deal with weight issues. And I myself, for many years, have on and off dealt with weight issues. And so being said, you start looking at that and focusing on that. That is your reward. And so your brain starts looking for that reward. And every morning you wake up and like, man, I feel really good this morning. But you realize that once you start establishing that, and then you don't have it, you realize that, man, I feel like junk. Like, I want to go back. Like, I enjoyed feeling really good when I woke up, and I didn't have to feel like junk. I didn't have to have a foggy brain. It didn't take me hours on end to like get my day going. Like, I was ready to go when I woke up, and I was excited about the day. And I wasn't just trying to get through my day only to go back to habits or behaviors that did not suit me, and it did more damage than it actually helped me. And so when you start looking at this and being aware of this, a lot of different things happen. And when I talk about being aware, and how can you build your awareness of this, there's a lot of different things you can do about this, is by reframing. Reframing is a really big one, because of the fact that what you're going to do is actually visualize yourself in that trigger. You start visualizing that trigger. Okay, I put my keys down and I open the cabinet, right? You visualize that, but when you reframe it, you put down your keys, and then you reframe it to where you walk to your bedroom and start putting on your clothes. You reframing this, it helps with the process of the action into that new trigger that you're trying to do. And so again, the 90 days is going to require you to push yourself a little bit more than it normally would. Again, because you're trying to rewire everything and understand that that's what you have to do. And for myself, throughout the years, I've done many different things to try to help myself rewire. Like when I was going into bodybuilding and trying to change the behavior, because that is a very strict and regimented schedule when you're doing bodybuilding and eating every 2 hours. So what I would do was I would set my alarm. Maybe it was a supplement I had to take. Maybe it was a time I had to eat. I made sure every 2 hours my alarm would go off. I know exactly what I had to do. And then I ate. And then after a while, after 90 days, I didn't need the alarm anymore. My body was on a timer, and I knew, okay, now I need to eat something now. And that's how you ingrain it. That's how you rewire it, is by doing this and building that habit and solidifying it by building that new trigger, and realizing that before it was all about, oh, well, it's easier, just go home, enjoy, have some pizza, and then perhaps watch a movie or whatever the case is, or binge watch something. But being said, it's not saying you have to eliminate everything. This is something, when you are doing a behavior, especially if it's talking about diet or anything like that, it doesn't mean you're going to remove it permanently. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people get caught up in, can also lead down a slippery slope. And you want to pay attention, again, where awareness is very much needed right here, because you don't want to start a good habit, establish a good habit, and then perhaps have a piece of pizza and then realize, okay, well, I just blew everything and I just ruined everything, and so I'm going to go back to my old habit. You don't want to do that. You can give yourself breaks and understand, well, maybe there's this one bad habit. Maybe I enjoy playing video games. Is something I don't really want to do anymore, right? And so you essentially cut that off. What is your trigger? And then realize, well, okay, I'll only allot myself maybe 1 hour a week, and that kind of lets me just let off some steam, and I can go do something else. And so, well, I'm building this new behavior. And so when establishing behavior, again, it seems complex, but it is quite simple. You look at the triggers, and you need to understand, well, this trigger leads me to do X, Y, and Z. And then you need to look at the reward. Well, what am I really getting from sitting on the couch? What am I really getting from the snack? Not just, it's bad. Because when you think of it like that, it's just bad. That isn't going to help you push you into the behavior that you want to go into. Because there's always an underlying truth and an understanding of what's truly going on there, because we all know that pizza is bad and broccoli is good. And we need to understand why exactly it is, for us to start essentially establishing that new behavior and being aware of it, and then realize what's the rewards I'm going to get. And a lot of times, you'll think about, well, I'll feel good, I'll look good, and that's where I want to be. I don't want to be living in pain or living uncomfortable and being overweight, and I don't like who I am. My confidence is low, all these possible things, because it is easier to come home, have that snack, and then watch TV and binge watch TV. So being said, you start looking at these things, you look at the triggers, you establish the new benefits, and then you need to keep that to the forefront. And a lot of times, for me, it comes back to visualization and looking. Maybe you have that board. Maybe you need that visual board to see what you want to become. Maybe it's even to do with wealth. Maybe it's something to do with finances. Maybe you need to realize, well, I can't go into Target because I just spend so much money. Maybe I should realize what that trigger is, right? Is just going into Target. Maybe you shouldn't go into Target anymore. Maybe you should pick a new trigger. Maybe I should just go directly to the grocery store, so I only pick up what I need. Groceries, I don't need any of the other stuff. If I need to buy the other stuff, I can look for different triggers that way. And so this, again, framework helps you establish different behaviors, because I know a lot of people, you can get in shopping binges as well. And a lot of times it's a lot of underlining things, and sometimes we just need to let out some steam and realize that that's okay. But you want to maintain it. You don't want stuff to get out of control, because when behaviors become out of control, or right, we like that. We like the rewards that we get from it, so we continue it to exist, so that we can maintain that reward, and realize that you're building and establishing a new habit that is bad for yourself. And so again, you want to look for triggers. You want to look and see what it is. Dive deeper. In anything in life, any kind of problem you have, you always have to dive deeper and see what the underlying cause and effect is of it, and realize, okay, well, if I want to really establish a better, healthier life for myself, what I need to do is look for a trigger that's going to allow me to reap that reward. What is that ultimate reward that I want? And then have some kind of visual representation on how that reward is. What is it? How are you going to look and feel when you reach that pinnacle of where you want to be? I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to feel energized. I'm not going to feel all groggy and like junk all the time. I'm going to feel like I'm ready to go. It doesn't matter what age I am, because I know for myself, like I just turned 40, and I feel younger than I did when I was 28, because my habits back then weren't the greatest. But now my habits are much better, and I feel so much better now. And so again, any habits you're trying to change, it requires you to go through this process. It requires you to think deeply about them. And a lot of times we don't want to think deeply. We go surface level on a lot of different things, and you can blame it on society. I think society has a big this impact with social media and everything, and YouTube and all these other different things, right? They try to give us, well, this is entertaining me, so I can switch to something else really fast. And so that program is automatically there to set us up for failure, because that bleeds over into all other things in our lives. And so we need to be aware of these things and remove them. Maybe social media is something you need to remove. Maybe that's a habit or something you need to break. I know for myself, like I do a lot for Discover Ignite, and so and other different things that I'm trying to build. So it's like I need to establish, okay, well, what's triggering me to perhaps go, because a lot of times I have to go on TikTok to figure out like what kind of video I'm going to make. And then a lot of different times, I'll go on there, and then I'll start looking at other stuff. And then I'm like, okay, now stuff is getting carried away. I'm not actually on here to do what needs to get done. And so I need to be aware of that, and then change that, pull myself out of it. Sometimes it may be just to remove the app and establish something else, right? Find a new reward. And a lot of times it's removing a reward to replace it with another reward that is more rewarding and more beneficial to, or align with what you want in life. And realize that if you can do that, you can start building off of this and creating the same roadmap into the different habits that you want to build. And understand that once you get over that 90 days, it is much easier to maintain. Your body would much prefer, again, broccoli over pizza, because of the fact that, well, this is the result, this is the way I'm feeling, and this is what I love to do. This is why people get so passionate about specific things. And you're like, well, why can't I have that passion about maybe being in bodybuilding or rock climbing, or have that passion to go build a business or something like that? Because of the fact that you have to reestablish the underlying truth as to what your reward is. What is the ultimate reward that you want? And a lot of times it is postponing gratification by looking at the ultimate reward and keeping that visual with you all the time, and using that visual all the time. And this can go back to a lot of NLP stuff too, in reframing what you'll look like when you reach that. And so you need to be aware of this and understand this is ultimately what is going to help you change your behavior. And again, I've established many different behaviors. I've gained some new behaviors. I've lost some new behaviors, or some old bad behaviors, I should say. So, and this is the roadmap. You have to do it. You have to look at the reward system. And this is in being aware of it and the triggers that cause you to go back to old habits, and stop them. And if you're not aware of it, you're going to continue to do it. So Go out there and start establishing some good behaviors.